Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into the world of Adam Smith and the wider world of social sciences.
Ooh,
We've got Smith's own work, writings on Emile Durkheim and Margaret Mead.
interesting.
We're going to try to figure out how individuals and societies work and what shapes our world.
It's like we're piecing together a puzzle, really. It's about understanding people and how society works.
Okay, let's start with Adam Smith. Most people know him as the Wealth of Nations guy, right? The father of capitalism.
Yeah,
Our sources say there's more to him than just free markets, though.
yeah, absolutely. The Wealth of Nations is his most famous work, of course. But his first major work was The Theory of Moral Sentiments.
Oh, really?
It came out almost 20 years before, and it shows a different side of Smith, one concerned with ethics, empathy, the well-being of others.
Really? That's not what you think of when you think capitalism.
I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most people see him as just focused on rational self-interest. But in The Theory of Moral Sentiments, he says, how selfish soever a man may be supposed, there are evidently some principles in his nature which interest him in the fortune of others and render their happiness necessary to him, though he derives nothing from it except the pleasure of seeing it.
Wow, that's a powerful statement. He sounds more human-centric than I thought.
Yeah, and it gets even more interesting because Smith was also a critic of empires. He said empires often put producers before consumers and lead to things like high taxes and national debt.
That's not something you hear every day. What exactly was his critique?
Well, he believed empires often expanded for the benefit of just a few, not the whole nation.
Oh, okay.
He actually wrote, a great empire has been established for the sole purpose of raising up a nation of customers who should be obliged to buy from the shops of our different producers all the goods with which these could supply them.
So he was saying empires are just giant shopping malls for the elite. That's a pretty bold statement for the 18th century. What does that tell us about global trade today?
It definitely raises some questions. You know the power dynamics between nations' international trade.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if things have really changed since Smith's time.
Makes you think. Our sources also mention Smith's thoughts on tariffs, retaliatory tariffs specifically. That seems pretty relevant now.
Yeah, Smith had some interesting thoughts on that. He said they could be effective in certain situations, to force another country to lower their tariffs.
So he wasn't totally against them.
Not necessarily, but here's the thing. He believed they often hurt more people than they help. They
Right.
might help producers for a little bit, but they act as a tax on everyone else by raising prices.
Makes sense. Got a quote for that.
He said, when there is no probability that any such repeal can be procured, it seems a bad method of compensating the injury done to certain classes of our people to do another injury ourselves, not only to those classes, but to almost all the other classes of them.
Wow, that's powerful. It really shows how complex and unpredictable interfering with trade can be. So is Smith all about completely free trade then?
Well, not quite. He generally preferred free trade, but he knew there could be exceptions, and that governments sometimes have to step in for the good of society.
Okay.
His main point was to warn against protectionist policies. He argued they can raise prices, stifle innovation, and hurt the economy as a whole.
So a balanced approach, considering both the good and bad of trade policies?
Yes, he was always thinking about the bigger picture, the long-term impact of economic decisions on society.
He wasn't just thinking about numbers, he was thinking about people.
Exactly.
It's amazing how relevant Adam Smith still is. Our deep dive also takes us into social sciences, and I'm interested in this interdisciplinary approach that one of our sources talks about.
Social science concept.
Yeah. What does that actually look like?
It basically means that fields like sociology, psychology, anthropology, economics, and political science all work together. They each offer a different way to understand people and how society works. It's like looking at something from all sides to really get the full picture.
So you're not just getting one expert opinion, but insights from different fields to get a better understanding.
Right.
Do you have an example?
Sure. Imagine we're trying to understand a protest movement.
Okay.
A sociologist might look at the social structures and group dynamics that make people join. A psychologist might look at why individuals protest and what biases they have.
I see.
An anthropologist might look at the symbols and rituals the movement uses.
Okay.
And an economist could study the economic issues behind the protest. And a political scientist could look at how the movement and the government interact.
Wow. So each field adds a piece to the puzzle.
Exactly. By combining all those perspectives, we can really understand the movement, it causes its energy, its possible impact.
That's really cool. It makes me think about how I could use those different ways of thinking to understand current events better. Our sources also talk about social facts. which Emil Durkheim came up with.
Oh, yes.
What's that all about?
Well, Durkheim said that things like societal norms, values, institutions, all these social facts really affect how we act.
Okay.
They shape our actions, thoughts, feelings, even when we don't realize it. It's like there's these invisible rules we follow based on where we live.
So even when we think we're making our own choices, we're actually being influenced by society. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is. Can you think of an example?
Let me think.
Okay.
Oh, like how people act in an elevator.
Exactly.
There are all these unwritten rules about space facing forward, not looking at anyone.
Right. Those unwritten rules are social facts that affect us even in simple everyday things.
It's wild how these little things can tell us so much about what our society values. It's like we're all doing this cultural dance without even knowing it.
That's a great way to put it. That's what makes studying social facts so interesting. They give us a peek into the values and beliefs that keep a society going. Speaking of understanding different cultures, we have to talk about Margaret Mead.
Oh, yeah. Her book, Coming of Age in Samoa, was a big deal, right?
Absolutely. It was revolutionary.
What was so groundbreaking about it?
Well, when it was published in 1928, it challenged this idea that being a teenager is always tough and stressful no matter where you are.
Like, teenage angst is just a natural part of growing up.
Right. But Mead's research showed that wasn't true everywhere.
Interesting.
She saw that teenagers in Samoa became adults pretty smoothly and that their culture, their social structures and expectations played a big role in that.
So it's not just about our biology, it's about the environment we grew up in and the things we learn.
Exactly. Mead's work is really important in shifting our focus from just biology to understanding how both nature and nurture affect us.
What I find fascinating is how these early anthropologists really immerse themselves in different cultures to learn about what it means to be human. What was so powerful about Mead's approach?
She really pushed for learning from other cultures and challenging our own biases, the ones that make us think our way is the best.
Yeah.
She thought that by studying how other people live, we could better understand ourselves and all the possibilities that exist for humans.
That's such an important message, especially now when we're bombarded with so much information from around the world. We have to be aware of our own biases and be open to other cultures.
I agree. And Mead wasn't just an academic observer. She was really involved in the social and political issues of her time.
Really?
Yeah, she used her understanding of culture to fight for social justice, gender equality, and peace.
She sounds like a true visionary, using her knowledge to make a real difference. Did she have any words of wisdom that still resonate today?
She did. One of her most famous quotes is, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world."
That's so inspiring. It reminds us that even in a world with so many problems, we can all do something to make things better. But how do we take all these big ideas about societies and cultures and use them to understand how the world actually works? It feels like we've got all these new tools to understand the world now. We've looked at how people act, cultural influences, how societies work. But how do we understand these systems and structures that govern us? Especially in this globalized world, things like political systems, economic models, all the things that drive decision-making.
Well, understanding economics and political science helps with that. One of our sources, What is Economics and What Do Economists Do, explain that economics is about how people make choices when resources are limited.
Right. We can't have everything. There are always trade-offs. Like, do you go to a concert or save up for a new phone?
Exactly. That's opportunity cost. Every decision means giving something else up. It's about understanding that trade-off, even in small choices.
That makes me think about all those decisions I make without even thinking about the opportunity cost. Like scrolling through social media instead of reading a book.
That's a great example. Neither choice is bad, but knowing the trade-off helps you make better decisions. Another important idea is thinking at the margin.
Thinking at the margin, I haven't heard of that.
It means focusing on small changes and what they cause. Instead of thinking in extremes, you think about the impact of little adjustments. Like instead of, should we have tariffs or not? You asked, what happens if we raise or lower tariffs on this one thing?
So you're seeing how even tiny changes can have a big impact throughout the system, like a chain reaction.
Exactly. This actually goes back to what Adam Smith said about tariffs. Little tweaks to trade policy can really change prices, jobs, even whole economies.
It shows how everything is connected, how choices in one place affect other places. Our deep dive also talked about political science. What does that tell us?
Political science is about understanding power, governance, the systems that shape political decisions. It helps us see how government works, both within a country and globally.
So, like how decisions get made, who has the power, how different political systems actually work.
Exactly. Political scientists use all sorts of tools like statistics, case studies, history research, even going out and observing things to study politics and test their theories.
Mm.
It's a field that's always changing, and it helps us understand the craziness of politics and be better citizens.
Wow, this deep dive has been a wild ride. We explored ethics and economics with Adam Smith, then the power of social norms with Durkheim, and the impact of culture with Margaret Mead. We even touched on economics and political science as a whole.
It's like we've woven together all these different pieces of knowledge to create a tapestry of understanding.
Yeah, each thinker, each field gives us a different perspective, and together they help us see the world in a whole new way.
I like that.
So what's the big takeaway for our listeners? What can they learn from this and use in their own lives?
One big thing is that everything is connected. Individuals, societies, economies, political systems. Understanding that connection helps us see the world in a more nuanced way and realize that our choices matter.
It also seems like critical thinking is key. Questioning what you think is true, considering different viewpoints, being aware of your own biases.
You got it. With so much information out there, critical thinking is how you navigate the complexity and make smart decisions.
It's about evaluating evidence, breaking down arguments, coming to your own conclusions. This deep dive has given us a lot to think about, and I hope it's made our listeners want to keep learning. As we wrap up our exploration of Adam Smith and social sciences, I want to leave you with one last thought from Margaret Mead. She said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world." It's a powerful reminder that even in a world facing so many challenges, we all have the power to make things better. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.